Welcome to the Ali Maz Show, where we focus on human being and spiritual living with a deep inclination for the divine. Together, we delve into the seen and the unseen. We explore what it means to be well and whole from the inside out. Over the last 17 years, I've been focused on how movement, breath, and the power of the mind can liberate us from the template of our conditioning and carve a path to live a truly authentic life. My hope is that my guests will inspire and expand you to continue to choose the life that is yours. Today's guest is UMI. UMI is a 24-year-old Seattle native pioneering a new sound rooted in neo soul and folk. Her deepest intention is to use her music as a vessel for healing and human connection. Meaning ocean in Japanese, Umi is a beautiful reflection of her artistry, soothing like a day spent in nature. She flows across melodies and allows herself to dive into the human experience in a way that leaves listeners feeling deeply understood. Welcome to the podcast, Umi.
Hi.
Hi. I
That was
love
a
you.
great intro.
Thank you. I'm so excited that you're here. You and I have spent lots of time together over this past year, and I'm just really excited to be in conversation and share all of the magic that you give to this world. And I feel like you are on this precipice of like just expanding so rapidly. So thank you for your time, and I just so appreciate and value what you bring. So thank you for being here.
That was so powerful. I love you. It's been a pleasure learning and growing with and from you. So I'm so excited to see what comes from this conversation. I feel like we're just going to flow in such a beautiful way.
I know. Okay, well, let's start first with who you are. I know we're similar in that we grew up in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, but if you could share like a little tidbit of your upbringing, and yeah, I always like to ask this question, like, who were you before the world told you who to be? You know, like who is the little Umi in the nature?
The little Umi is very adventurous and silly and loves music. I when I think back to my childhood, I think about how playing for me was always playing with music. Like I would pretend to be doing a show, and my little sisters were my fans, or I would pretend to set up a studio in my on my bunk bed because like the corner of your room has really good acoustics. I would like put a fake mic on, or I'd pretend to be doing a radio show when my dad gave me like a tape recorder. So music has always been play. So I think the fact that I'm pursuing music is shows me that I'm living a life that my little me would have lived too. Like it doesn't feel like it's been swayed by anything. And I grew up, like you said, in the Pacific Northwest. Shout out Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Seattle, and then I moved a little bit outside of Seattle, more deeper into the forest. And it's interesting. When I was younger, music was something that was very important to me, but I was also very shy, and I think that was something I was like learned over time was like the stage fright, fear of being seen. So as much as I love to do music, it was very scary for me to sing, and so I that's what pushed me to start my online presence because if you're online, you don't really have to be in front of people, but you can be in front of people. So I make YouTube videos of me doing covers and singing and stuff and upload original songs. But if someone was like, "Do you want to perform live?" I would be like, I would do it, but I would get the craziest shakes and I couldn't breathe. And over time, my music started growing online, and maybe like 2 years into it, I got flagged for copyright on SoundCloud, and they were like, you do one more cover, we're taking your account away. And so that's what pushed me to start putting original music up on like iTunes and Spotify and stuff. And it started just very organically growing. I moved to LA to go to school, but really to do music. And I did open mics every single week to get over my stage fright, and would like skip class to go to the studio. And um, then I decided to leave school and do music full time. So that's kind of my story. I'm trying to think anything else from my childhood. And my mom is Japanese, my dad is black, and they both did a lot of music growing up. My mom played piano, my dad was a DJ and in like a gospel band. So morning to night music was always playing. And yeah, I think maybe the last thing to add to is growing up, I was often like the only minority in my environment. And I kind of feel like that added to my sense of stage fright and fear of being seen, of like, um, feeling like I always stood out without meaning to stand out, and also feeling like what everyone else found beautiful or like attractive. You know, when you're like, oh, you want crushes in middle school and stuff, and I was like, no one ever crushed on me, but it's because I wasn't beautiful. It's just like I was different, you know. So I think I've been through my music. It's been allowing me to heal things from then to get to where I'm at now.
Mm. And that, to me, that's really what your music is healing. It's this healing that you offer the world, and you have such a genuine and authentic and truthful spirit. And whether it's through conversation or through music, you singing, playing an instrument, or you teaching breath work and meditation, you so beautifully weave in authenticity. And so, to me, watching you perform or being in your presence, it feels like a healing experience. And it's so profound and so powerful. And I'm curious, being in the music industry, being in a male driven industry, and often, and as a young artist, where I'm sure lots of labels and, people have ideas of who you should have been as an artist, and I've seen you work, and we'll talk about being on tour together. Like, I've seen you show up and share your point of view and what you want to offer. But I'm curious if that's been challenging for you to be like, no, it's like this, or I'm going to show this piece of my soul. We don't see that often. It's so unique.
Thank you. I feel so, my heart is full. Um, it's been a journey. It's been a journey, and that's why I'm grateful for my career, because I feel like if it wasn't for me doing music, I don't know if I would have pushed myself to be this authentic in a way. It's like it's so important to me that I have to do it authentically.
Yeah.
But a memory that comes to mind is, I had signed to a major label a couple years back. I just left that about a year ago, and when I first started, it was beautiful, because I was within a smaller label within the bigger label. So it was very like one on one, and they really understood me. And I could tell they signed me because they believed in the art. They were patient with my process. But then that kind of dissolved. And then I got pushed into the bigger label. And I just, no one at the label signed me. So they didn't really get me. I was just kind of like placed in there. I got signed. There's a little fly in my room. The fly reminds me to not think so much. Anyway, um, and then, so I was at the label, and I was right before I was about to release my album, and I just kept being told like, you need to be more like Doja Cat. You need to be more like Nicki Minaj. You need to wear more bright colors. You need to like stop using film. You need to, and it was like really bizarre to me. And I also feel like I was very like, this is what I want, this is not what I want. If I do that, it works for this person, but it's not going to work for me because that's not who I am. And I think in me being really strong about that, I got labeled as a difficult artist to work with, which is very disappointing because I don't consider myself to be difficult to work with. I'm very open, but I'm just also very sure of myself. And I think that at first it was really painful, and it was my people pleasing coming out of like, I don't want people to think I'm difficult. I just want to like, I'll listen to you. And I try to be super compromising, was finding middle grounds, but it was just draining my energy. I'm sure it was draining their energy. And so when we parted ways, it was very liberating for me. And even that whole experience was liberating for me, because it made me understand like, oh, I really am an artist. Like, some labels are looking for people who can sing or can dance, but they don't have a vision for themselves. And so they can be placed into a vision, which that's cool if that's you, but that's not me. And so since leaving, I've just, instead of feeling like, oh, I'm difficult or anything, I've been like, I'm empowered, I'm confident, I'm sure of myself. And it's been trickling into all areas of my life, which is great.
Yeah, I'm curious how that's affecting the new music that you're making and how
Yeah.
that shifted. And I know there's an EP coming in January, and I know that the couple songs that you just released, to me, when I listen to those songs, they feel so free. They feel so like, it makes me excited, like I can feel the joy in them. So curious
Yeah.
how that the impact on the music that you're making now.
Um, this new EP I'm releasing, it's called Talking to the Wind, and the whole premise of the EP is like, when I feel lost, I sit outside and I let the wind talk to me. I let the elements speak to me, and they say very simple things like "it's gonna be okay" or "just be." And I decided I want to make this project after I left my label because I felt unsure of what my next step was, but I also felt some invisible cord like just connecting me to create. So all the songs are songs that I created without really like knowing why I was creating or what I was creating for, who I was even creating for. It was just like for the enjoyment of creating. And so that's kind of what ties the whole EP together. It's like the theme of surrender in a way. And my hope is when people listen to the EP, it'll give you the same clarity as going outside. Like if you have a question at the beginning, by the time you finish the EP, you'll have some next step or some inspiration that guides you closer to that thing you're moving towards. And so, yeah, I think I like to create music like that. Music that it reflects my personal experience and learning that I can then share with other people.
Mm. And what is the writing process like for you? I know that there is a journal like strapped to you at all times. You are always journaling. You're always writing things down, and it's so beautiful. You're such a beautiful student of life, and I know you take everything in, and you're constantly gaining lessons from what you see and what you experience. And I'm curious, the writing process for you, is it something that's kind of coming up and alive from your journal? Is that where you're pulling your inspiration from? Is life through pen to paper, and then does it go song creation? Are you hearing a melody? Are you hearing a beat? Like, what is that process like?
Mm. Oh, this is such a fun question. It's very song by song, but a lot of it comes from things I've written down, things that I've observed. Like you've seen me be like, "Oh, I have to write that down. That's so good." And I'll just keep it in my brain. And then when I hear a song with a certain sonic, I see things in color a lot. So like a certain sound with like a blue color to it, and then a certain experience is also very blue to me, or a certain quote somebody says is blue, and then I'll connect the two and create a song. And then sometimes it's just very in the moment and I'll just be freestyling and then words will come through and I'm like, oh, so that's what I want to say. Okay, let's lean into that. But I'm definitely a person where if I don't experience life, it's hard to create. Like I don't like forcing myself to create. Um, I like to take in. Like I definitely intuitively feel like, oh, now it's time for me to go into the world and input experiences to then output creativity.
Yeah.
But sometimes inputting is just hearing people's stories. Like I don't have to have the story to write it. So, but then listening still requires me getting out of the studio, going somewhere, asking questions.
Totally. And I know you to be a really empathic person. I know you feel a lot. This is also where we're really similar in the sort of sensitivity and receptivity of
Yes.
others. And I know that you've written songs just through other people's experiences. Other people's experiences and almost the universal experience of being human and what it means to feel. And I think that's why your music resonates so deeply with your fans, is because you can listen to a song and go like, that's me. I felt that way. And that's the power of music to heal. It brings people through their experiences. And I'm curious if you have any artists in your life that you, or who you're currently listening to, that gives you sort of that same feeling of like, oh, okay, I just need this song or this artist. They're going to say the thing I need to hear today.
So many. Some main ones like SZA, Janae Aiko, Erica Badu, Frank Ocean. Um, those are like top of mind. Although I think the through line for all those artists for me is their lyricism. And I think they're all very transparent in the way that they write. And they like write about niche things that you wouldn't think, like you kind of forget you even went through it. Um, yeah, and it's very straightforward, and that's been something I've been leaning into is like not hiding my experience behind metaphors and like in like pictures, but just saying exactly how it is.
Mm.
And sometimes that simple, straight to the point is the best way to get to somebody.
Totally. And I feel like with all of those artists have in common is just the consciousness that's woven into the music as well. And let's double click on Janae for a second, because you just played an arena with Janae Aiko. Janae Aiko is one of my favorite artists of all time. And it's before I hit record, Umi was saying, like, Well, I'll let you explain it. Just that feeling of being on that
Oh
stage.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was such a freaking amazing experience. I mean, like you said, I've been listening to her for years, and I think that we come from the same planet of music. So when I was there and I was with the fans, it just made so much sense. And I felt like I didn't even have to go out of my way to convey who I was. It just felt like people would understand who I am just by my presence, which was such a good feeling.
Mm.
And we had this moment where I asked everybody to turn their flashlights on, and the lights were like from the bottom to the top. It was crazy. And I was telling Ali, like, a few weeks before that, I had gone to another arena show, and the artist had like asked for the lights to come on. And whenever people do that, I pretend it's for me. So I was just like soaking it in, like, wow. And then 2 weeks later, literally that manifestation is happening. So that was beautiful. And another thing to add too is we had a lot of technical difficulties before the show. It was really, I was like, yeah, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be fine. But because of the technical difficulties, more and more people filled the room. And because more and more people filled the room, the more lights there were. So I was just kind of like, wow, there really is a divine plan in all of this.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about trust.
Yes.
Because, in order to live your highest purpose, there needs to be a lot of trust involved. Because generally, when we're walking our purpose, it can feel a little bit lonely because we're having to carve a path for ourselves because we don't like you said, when you're on a label, they wanted you to be like this, be like this. And so when you carve your own path, it takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of bravery, it takes a lot of trust to say, I know that divine creator, source, however you want to call it, there's a plan here, and I'm in this co creation and walking this. And even though it's scary, or I don't know how the show is going to go down, there's a sense of trust. And so, how do you cultivate trust? How do you practice trust?
Mm.
What is your relationship to trust?
Whew. Every time you say trust or I think of trust, I remember when I was going to your retreat and I was really scared to go on the charter planes, and you had texted me, "Fear is false evidence appearing real." And literally, that's come in handy so many
Mm.
times. I think trust to me is choosing how you want to feel and choosing what you want to believe in, because in the moment of trusting you can also choose not trusting, and it's not like someone gives no one gives you trust, or like trust doesn't just like sprinkle onto you. It's you choose it. So it's a practice. And I think what helps me trust is remembering all the times when I was fearful, but then all of it was an illusion. And it's important for me every time I overcome a fear, like the fears I had before the show, for example, I'll journal on all the fears weren't real, how that would like, and it helps me dissolve it and strengthens my trust muscles. Um, and also, I've been tuning into my feelings more, and I'm like, I want to live a life that feels good to live and think thoughts that feel good to live and be in. Trust feels really good. And so I just lean on, like, if it feels good, it must be real and it must be true. And if it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel good for a reason. It must be not in alignment with the truth of who I am. So tuning into that, becoming more aware of that also helps me catch myself when I'm not trusting.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I say that often. Alignment feels good. It's like a yoga pose. When you're in the alignment, the pose feels good. And it's
Mhm.
the same thing with life when you're in alignment with your thoughts and your actions and your words. And I know that and we'll talk a little bit more about the retreat in a moment, but I know that some of your great learnings right now are sort of in the observation of the mind. And this is what yoga is, right? Yoga is the observation of the mind. This is when we sit and we meditate and we can kind of pull back and watch the mind like a movie. Suffering is caused by really believing every single thought we have in our brain, and our brains have a negativity bias, and so it would be quite natural and inherited generationally, societally, that some thoughts that come into our mind are negative or doubting or fearful. And so it's using the discernment of, is this true? And how to implant new thoughts that can create a certain reality. And you're just masterful at this, and especially at such a young age. And I really think that's attributed to so much of your authenticity, but B, your success is to kind of be able to observe the mind and go, we're not going to listen to those thoughts, and we're going to bring in new thoughts, and these thoughts are going to heal me. These thoughts are going to propel me forward. So I was sort of, I don't even know if there's a question in this, but what does that look like for you in that
Mm,
observation of your own mind? Because this is really like a level 2 sort of teaching. It's one thing to observe the mind, and it's a whole other thing to really work with your mind.
mhm. Hmm. That was a good, just like download right there. I feel like I would put that on like my phone cover and read that every day as a reminder to myself. Um, when you say that, it just reminds me of the retreat that we went on, the Lady Bonner retreat, because I was telling Ali a big goal of mine when I went to the retreat was really learning how to separate myself from my thoughts. I felt like I was really, I mean, one of my goals, oh, okay, I'm bouncing around in timelines, but when I visualize myself in the future and somebody asks me, what's your biggest success? And it's after like all my Grammys and my world tours, and I feel like I just know what I'm going to say is my mental health and my peace of mind. And going to the retreat was such an important part of that. And separating yourself from your thoughts is such an important part of your mental health. And I was just so ready to really fully have good mental health. Like I was like there sometimes, not there sometimes, and I'm just like I want that for myself. I deserve that for myself. And I think just having a moment where instead of doing something to get rid of a anxious thought, instead of action being my default, it was just presence and awareness. And I realized, oh, the thought just goes away on its own. Like it's not this thing that's so big, was so shattering, and my ego was like throwing a fit. But once I let that go, the peace I've had since then has been just so amazing. And everything that I've been attracting also from this state of peace has been so powerful and magnetic. And so I'm just understanding that is the foundation of everything.
Mm. Yeah, and what's interesting when we really set an intention to grow and to learn and to be with something, we don't always get the thing delivered in a pretty little package. So, for context, Umi came to my last retreat in Panama, and there was some things that shifted. At first everyone was going to take a bus, but there was some protests happening in the country, and so we chartered these really small planes, and Umi was like, that's my greatest fear. So before you even got to the retreat center, you already were being faced with something that was challenging. So that's how you started the retreat. And then how you ended the retreat is you literally walked through fire. And that was not an exercise on the retreat, but for you it was. So do you want to speak a little bit about how you ended the retreat?
Yes. So I literally walked through fire. Um, we had a campfire going, and the campfire had faded. And I think I was just in my inner child excitement mode. I was not paying attention to anything. I had just jumped in the water, and I was going. It was my final dip. I was ready to go back into the room, and I was also walking with a couple other girls too. And I was the only one that stepped right through the embers of the fire and burned the bottom of my feet. And when it first happened, I felt no pain and just like instant spiritual energy rising through me. And I was like, oh, this is very spiritual. And everyone's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, that was just very spiritual. And then like 30 seconds after that was the intense physical pain. I mean, all our feet are so sensitive. My feet are so sensitive. Sometimes I feel like I can taste through my feet in a way. Like it's like crazy energy on my feet. So it was so painful for like 6 or 7 hours. And I was just running water on my feet and just sitting with the pain for a while. And I just felt like this is an initiation in a way. And I was like, this is a moment for me to practice everything I learned, because I was sitting there and my physical body was in so much pain, but I could tap into my inner me, the me beneath me, that was just so joyful, was not in any pain at all, was laughing, wanted to watch cartoons, wanted to call my friends and like let them know what happened, and like in a really funny way. And so I was able to tune in and out of the pain as I wanted to. And after the pain went away and I was just reflecting on it, I just was like, oh, I can never go back to fully identifying with my thoughts anymore. The split was so real and visceral for me that I fully understand what my thoughts are and I understand who I am. And so it's also so symbolic, like, Umi, don't walk through the fire in a way, like, don't let your ego, don't let the fear hurt you, burn you. Allow yourself to float through it, and allow yourself to separate yourself from it. So I think some people could take that experience and be like, what a horrible, like, da, da, da. But for me, I was like, this is a gift. I know this is a
Mm.
gift. This is a lesson. And I healed so fast. And I'm sure it's because of the frequency of the way I alchemized the experience.
It was amazing to watch you through that. I mean, I was at breakfast the next morning. I wasn't there when you walked through the fire, but your roommate came out and said, "Oh, Umi walked through fire, but she's fine." And I go into your room and you're just chilling, and like, like your suitcase, we need to pack your suitcase, get you onto the bus, get you onto the plane. Like it wasn't the easiest homecoming. And I just thought the way in which you were moving through that experience was so miraculous. And
Mm,
it really taught me something, and I think taught everyone that was on that retreat, because you're right. There's a lot of people that could have gone through that experience and gone full victim mode, full blame mode. Why weren't the lights still on the beach? Or why wouldn't they mark that place? Or I can't believe this is happening to me. And oh my God, how am I going to get home? I can't walk. And there you were, like we found your little wheelchair at one point. That man carried you off the plane. Like you had to leave the next morning at 4 o'clock in the morning. Like the situation was not ideal, and yet here you were in that moment. And this is why I'm so excited to hear you share the story, is the learning. And this is what I love about you, is because you take life and you go, okay, how can I learn from this? How can I grow? How can I be better? Versus, why did this happen to me? I can't believe this is happening. And so there's really, you've sort of broken this mold of victimhood, which is a universal
mm,
experience for so many people, is to look at God or look at the universe and go, why me?
mm.
And I really think there's two ways to look at that: why me, or why not me? Why not me
Why
do it?
not me?
Why not me?
Yes.
And I just think the way the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. And we say this a lot in the yoga practice too. I can tell a lot about a person by the way they do yoga, but if they're fidgety and distracted and this and that, it's often how they show up in life. And to be in this sort of moment that could have been a crisis, truly, and you just said, no, I'll be fine, and I know I'll heal my feet, and you literally, through the power of your mind, were able to heal. And I just think that it's so incredible. And I'm curious what, I ask all my podcast guests this, and I know it's this ineffable, sort of undefinable thing, but what is your relationship to God, to spirit, to creator, divine? How do you define that? And what is that relationship like, that sort of co-creation like for you?
I've never been asked that. I love that. My relationship with spirit is, wow, what a question. Um, it teaches me unconditional love because I realize that spirit has unconditional love for me in all situations, and I think that's what keeps me out of victim mindset of all things, is like, how does my spirit see this? How does spirit see this? And the more I tune into how spirit sees it, I feel how close or far I am from it, and I try to tune myself as close as I can to spirit. The easier life gets, the faster I heal, the faster things come to me, or just like the more I enjoy the present moment. And so I think that spirit is like, this beautiful North Star that I feel blessed to have, that guides me and loves me no matter what. And so it makes me want to love myself no matter what and love others no
Mm.
matter what.
Such a beautiful answer. Yeah, I felt that. I feel like everything you've said has given me all the chills. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, I love. I have a deep heart. A big part of my purpose in this world is to connect with young people and give them these tools of spirituality at a younger age. And I know that's something that's so important to you too. And I'm curious. what motivates you or inspires you to connect sort of with this, it's your generation of young people coming up in the world? You know, you could just get on stage and sing and do your thing, but you have your audiences take deep breaths, you have your audience say affirmations, and I had the privilege of being on tour with you when you led a breathwork tour, so you didn't even sing your songs. This is what I love about you. I'm sure your label's like, sing the damn song, but you were like, no, I'm going to bring all my sound bowls and get people to lie down and do breath work. Like, you are bringing a message, a really clear message to the next generation and beyond. But specifically, who I saw in those audiences, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of young people that are you're sharing healing modalities with them. It's so cool. So can you speak a little bit about that, of that infusion of these spiritual tools to your younger audiences?
Mm. I think what inspires me more than anything is my own journey and how much I've been able to transform myself. Like, I really reprogrammed my mind. 6 years ago, Umi could not handle what I do now, couldn't even stand in front of you, couldn't have this conversation. And I think a lot of people feel frozen in who they are and they don't know how to change, but they also feel like something needs to change.
Mm.
And I think that it's my purpose to share with people through my example and through my life. And it's like one of those things I just get fired up about. I can't even explain where that passion comes from. But I just feel like the amount of joy that I have for life now, all people have access to, and it's just a matter of the tools. And to be able to share that with people just excites me. It's like, no, duh, that's exactly what I want to do. So I don't know what makes me want to do it, but I also know that it's just my purpose and as what I came here to do.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's possible to change, and I want people to know that.
Yes, it is, and it's what I love about the infusion of your message, and it is so authentic and it's so real, because you will be honest and real about what you're experiencing, but you keep it in this sort of undertone of, there's still always hope. You know, it
Mm.
doesn't just go so far emo that it's like you get stuck there, people get stuck there with you. I feel like you really understand. I mean, this is a part of who you are. Your name literally means ocean, and I've surfed with you before, and I know that you really understand flow. And that's,
Mm.
I think, a piece of the offering. And this is because that's how I see you as a leader too, as a teacher, as well as a fellow teacher, light worker in the world, bringing this work in, is that we have to be honest about, life will take us down, but how we get back up, and what are the things that kind of pull us up and out. And I know you have many practices, but I'm curious, what are some of your favorite practices that when you are feeling really low, what are the things you do, from the sort of micro things, it could be the smallest of things, or bigger things, but what are the practices that pull you up and out?
Breathwork is a big one for me. I did breathwork. I don't know if I told you this, but when we got back from the retreat at the hotel, and I was like, I couldn't go out and explore, so I was just laying in bed. And I had a moment where I was really sad because I really want to explore. Like, I did not expect this to happen. And I was like letting my human feelings come up, but then they were getting stuck and I wasn't able to let them pass anymore. So I did breathwork, and breathwork is so healing for me. It's like helps me break through any feelings of stuckness and come back to clarity. And I could go in on breathwork. And when I was doing the breathwork session with my feet, I felt like all my angels come down and just like pour love into my feet. And so I do breathwork if I feel unwell, if it just heals me from the inside and helps me draw power in.
Hmm.
Outside of breath work, I'm trying like more simple things that I like. It's just going outside, being in the sun is very simply healing. Eating, if I'm anxious or anything, most of the time I'm just hungry. So once I eat, you know this too. We would be at the I would wake up, she's like, "How are you?" "I'm hungry. I
Yeah.
can't talk. I
She
don't have
can't
any."
even speak. But I'm the same way. I cannot function. I go full shutdown. So I saw that in you. I was like, oh, okay. She's gotta eat her breakfast first and then we will speak.
And I think that's like, it's kind of like taking your power back, because for a while I felt like I didn't need to eat that much. I was supposed to do intermediate fasting, or,
Mm,
all these other things that just don't actually align with my body. So taking back eating when I feel the need to eat has been so empowering for me, so
mm,
healing for me.
mm,
Um, and I think the last thing would be water activities, taking a shower, being in a bath, going into the ocean. The water just has a way of clearing me.
mm. And especially because you're often in these big settings, these huge venues. And I've seen you after shows at your merch booth. There's a lineup around the block, and you stay, you talk to everyone, you hug them, you connect. You're giving so much of yourself. And there's so much life force that is pumping through you. We call that prana. The Sanskrit word is prana, or you might know it as chi. We all have this unlimited source of life force, but it's how we tend to the life force, because it
Mhm.
can dim. And I'm sure you know what it feels like when you start to feel the reserves are really low. And so, in order to give in the way that you give, finding the ways to cut the cords, clear the energy, hot shower, jumping in the ocean, and sunlight, food, these things are not, they're necessities in particular for what you do, because there's such high energy exchange. And it's something I've learned so many times throughout the years. When I get a little lazy with it, I go down hard. And so the discipline around these things, they're not luxuries, they are necessities. And I know you spoke about it a little bit, where there's time for you to really be in the world, and then time for you to sort of pull back and be out of the world. So what does downtime look like for you?
I love downtime. Having and being in downtime is also a big healing thing, because for years I felt guilty about downtime, and so then I would burn myself out. But this year I feel like I finally unlocked doing nothing and feeling so happy about it. So downtime for me now is just like being in bed as long as I want to be in bed for, and eating whatever my heart desires. And downtime to me is not having a schedule, honestly, because my life when I'm out in the world is very, very scheduled, but it's not consistent every day necessarily. But it's like it's filled with some kind of shine, like I'm expressing and showing myself. So when I have downtime, I'm like, I don't want to know what I'm doing tomorrow. I just want to figure it out tomorrow. And I want to be able to change my mind, and I want to be able to drive there and decide I don't want to do it, and that's totally fine. Like that kind of freedom is important to me. Spending time with friends, family, animals, myself, and painting, like other types of creative outlets. Like I've been painting a lot. This month is a downtime for me. So
Mm-hmm.
painting, dancing, art, cooking. I like to do that. And all those things replenish me. I just feel it when I'm being replenished. It's like I'm smiling from within.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so many of those things are feel so grounded, right? It's like the root chakra stuff,
Yeah.
eating, the
Root
basic
chakra.
needs, yeah,
Wow.
family, foundation, connection, and I can feel it when I start to pull up and away from those things. I get really ungrounded, and you kind of. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm good, and you're kind of spinning out, and you're like, no, no, don't make this stop. It's like you're high from life, and then at some point, that's sort of, for me, I know that's when the crash happens. It's like when someone close to me is like, are you sure you're not doing too much? I'm like, I'm fine. I know that I'm not fine.
You're just like
I
me.
know, I know. And so coming back down, and coming back to the simplicity, and that's something my teacher really has been supporting me with actually post Panama. I was there for a month. I led yoga teacher training and then a retreat. It was a lot of people, a lot of energy. So I
Yeah.
came home and I was like, I got to launch my podcast. I got to do all these things. And then, like, 1 week later, it was like, nope, I have a head cold and body aches and I'm down because my body is such a sensitive barometer for these things. It's like, girl, you cannot handle anymore. So I'm grateful for my body that always sort of tells me I'd like to get a little bit more skillful at catching it before I really go down. But I haven't seemed to figure that out yet. But really enjoying the slow. And we're in winter right now, and the seasons dictate so much of our energy, and the day is shorter. You know, nature is literally saying, stay inside, go to sleep earlier. And the more I can adhere to the seasons, you know, I talk about this a lot. You know, this, like, we're such cyclical creatures, especially those of us that have uteruses. You know, that hormonal cycle is 28 days. It's not a 24-hour cycle, and we're different every day, and we cycle with the moon. We need different things. And I know you love the moon like me, and I know that you lead these beautiful moon ceremonies over Instagram Live and YouTube. Tomorrow, actually, well, when we're recording this, tomorrow is the new moon. It's the last new moon of 2023. New moons are a powerful time to set new intentions and seed new sort of intentions for expansion. And I'm curious at this time, what seeds are you planting, whether that's personal or career?
Many seeds. I'm in manifestation season these days. I think it's because I've really checked off my mental health, so it feels like I have capacity for that. So some seeds I'm planting next year, even just like this moment onward, I'm planning being shining more, being seen more, my music reaching more people, but in a very massive way. With the EP, I have a single coming out in January with as well, and I think I just keep telling myself I want everything to exceed my expectations. So I'm ready for that to blossom. I'm also been really diving into being a performer and how to be an even greater performer. So training more and taking more vocal lessons and enjoying it. It's not like it comes from like a place of like, I want to be better in a good way. So I'm planting the seeds and like embodying that more, planting the seeds of balance, um, spending more time with family, friends, being like consistent and showing up there just as consistently that I show up in my for myself and in my career.
Mm,
So I'm not even this. I'm this. I'm calling that in, and planting seeds for. It's so many seeds I'm planting. More creativity and just health.
mm. I love that. I love what you said about putting the same energy into family and friends. I know that, especially those who are really career driven, it's sort of like, okay, well, I want to just do all these things and then I want to keep myself healthy as I do that. And then to even look outside of that can be really tricky to balance some form of social life or community and connection. And I know you have two twin sisters, and I know that your mom is around, like you know, and I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of your wonderful friends, and I love seeing videos when you're dancing and you're free with your friends, and it fuels the rest of it, right? It really, we
Yeah,
need that. We need that foundation.
we
Yeah.
do. We do.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, what does it look like for you in your dreamscape? You know, when you go to sleep at night, I'm curious, are you someone who dreams or dreams vividly? Do you write your dreams down in the morning? What is sort of like, you know, sleep is such a portal. We let
Yeah.
go of the day, we surrender fully. It's sort of the death, quote unquote, of the day. What is that sort of nighttime portal? And I know also sometimes you stay up all night and record music and don't sleep. But I'm curious, sort of, not just sleep as in rest, but like sleep as in dreaming, and in sort of traveling and traversing the planes of you know, our non awakeness. if that makes sense.
That's such a lovely way to word it. I love dreaming. I think throughout the month I have different phases, like phases where I'm vividly dreaming and I'm adventuring, and then I have phases where I feel like if I'm ever worried about something or there's something in my subconscious, it comes up. And so I don't have scary dreams, but I have like stress dreams for like a couple days. It's usually around my period, so that's when I'm like, okay, I'm about to be on my period. And then while I'm on my period, I go back to like vivid dreams. So when I'm in vivid dream mode, before I go to sleep, I'll be like, dear Umi, let's dream about this. Or sometimes I'll even like ask my friends, you want to meet up in our dreams? And we'll just like see if we'll see each other in our dreams. And then when I'm in more of my like stressful dream era, I usually take time to journal on why I'm having that dream and be like, where's this coming from? Um, yeah, so that's usually my relationship with my dreams. And I have a dream journal, and I definitely keep track of my dreams because my dreams are more vivid since writing about them, and I love vivid dreams. I get to live two lives. So,
Totally.
and the
And do you
other
ever
life,
feel and do
oh
you ever
yeah,
feel like you can lucid dream too? So when you're in the dream, can you get conscious in the dream and then you're
oh yeah,
directing the dream?
I
Yeah.
totally can. I feel like I wish I could do it more. It happens once every 2 months or so, but when it happens, I try. I do it all. I fly. I'm the president. I'm a tree. I see my friends. Like I love it.
It's so cool. I do too, and I think it's interesting what you said, like around like how it changes cyclically, and when we're on our periods, we the veil is thinner, which is really interesting. And this is a time, especially historically, before we lost a lot of these traditions and understandings of our bodies. Is a time where people on their periods felt the most intuitive, where
Mhm.
witches really felt like they could do the best, readings and connection and speaking to the other side. And I always think, having a different relationship with your period and having the opportunity to really deeply dive into sort of the dark feminine would be a way of putting it, or sort of the witchier elements of where the veil is thin between yourself and everything else. And so dreams or pulling cards or having a conversation with the divine, it's like, to me it feels like such a sensitive, powerful time, and really trying to work a little less in that time, and being out, out of the world and really in your own zone when we can, is so important.
So important. Out of the world and in your own zone. I like that
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. And I love that it's balanced with, these intentions that you're planting. And I love the way that you speak them out loud. And it's so powerful. Our words have so much power, and not just to write them, but to say them, and then to say them to me. And then a bunch of people are going to hear this podcast. And now people are going to witness you saying them. All of that has its own weight and its own magic. And I think that we deny ourselves sometimes of that. Or what if I say that? And it's scary, and what are people going to think? And just the declaration of our own dreams, it accelerates them so fast.
Yes, it does. And I've been realizing spirit is in the dreams. Like spirit is so excited about my dreams. Spirit is shouting about my dreams. Spirit is like any doubt I have, spirit doesn't have it. So
Mm.
when I feel doubtful, I just go like, that's not actually real. Like the truth is I can proclaim this. It will happen when it's meant to. Doesn't matter what people think. Like, and the more you align with it, then the more it happens. And it's just like undoing all this thought of like, I thought, oh, thinking about it more and like planning it more and working harder towards it is what's going to make it happen. And I'm like, oh no, it's just believing it with less resistance. That's all.
Yeah, and that's the old paradigm, right? And it's very patriarchal, it's very capitalistic, white supremacist, sort of old thinking of just do more, try harder, work harder, more hours. Whereas, there's this shift that's happening where it is more fluid. No, get into alignment.
Mm.
Understand yourself, be in conversation with the universe. And we don't have to try as hard as I think we were told we had to. You listen to all these successful people, and it's like, you just have to work hard. And you do. There's no doubt about that. But I think the alignment that comes along with trusting yourself and trusting the divine, has so much more merit to it as well.
And I feel like when you move from that inspiration, it requires less energy because you're just riding the wave in your own momentum. You don't have to like get started. That like feeling disappears, and you're just like excited to do it all. And it makes me think when I first shifted from just action to inspired action, I was scared that I wouldn't like I would be behind or I would procrastinate or and that's like the fear that was clinging me onto the old paradigm. But since letting it go, I'm like I'm actually way more productive and I'm actually kind of doing more than I did before, but it feels like I'm doing less because it's all fun and from inspiration and it happens in the perfect order and not the order I planned it to happen. And I'm just like, spirit is so wise. It's like I'm so wise. Spirit is so wise. What we I'm glad I tapped into this.
Totally. It's a secret weapon. I think that you sort of have two options. One is to believe and the other is to not believe. And I know what it has felt like to not believe and to sort of feel the separation and the aloneness of what it can feel like to feel disconnected from source. And the more I trust, the more I get shown. And the more I get shown, the more I get to do. And I love, it's sort of like our surf lesson, what they say, like slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And it's this idea where you take your time and you trust, and then the smoothness comes, and then all of a sudden, like how quickly things are taking off for you in your career, like how things are moving in a way where you kind of stop resisting life or forcing life and trusting life. And it gets so sweet, and it continues to reveal how sweet it can get. And it just keeps getting better, which is the best part.
So limitless.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the people around you believe that too, or do you sort of feel like a lone bird on this path sometimes? What does that sort of look like for you? You've sort of spirituality has been a big part of your life, obviously, and who you are, and now through your music and your brand. But do you feel people like, oh, eye roll, like, oh, that's just Umi, or do you feel like people around you are like believing the same things you do?
It's a mixture, but mostly people really do believe. I feel like it's not even that people don't believe or anything. I think okay, wait, let me start over. I would say most of the people around me believe. Most of the people around me are tuned into spirit, and it's just like varying degrees of how much they're letting in a way. But I feel like I'm attracting into my life people who are all connected to that. And even if there's someone in my life who's not, there's still like a glimmer of openness that I feel like brought them into my life, and there's something that they can teach me, whether it's like how can I better explain this to somebody, or how can I explain this to someone who hasn't felt this before. um, and I also feel like through my life, I've seen my friends around me also transform in front of me. And a lot of it is me doing less teaching and more just like being an example. And then they'll be like, wait, how did you do that? Like, how did you manifest that? And I'm like, I thought you never asked. And then I share. Versus before, I'd be like, you have to read this book, you have to watch this video. And they're not going to feel it until they're ready. And same with me. Same with me. I don't feel it until I'm ready too. So that's kind of what my circle looks like.
It's such a good point. I think, especially when we learn something new. I know when I started practicing yoga at 19, I was like, everyone has to do yoga right now, mom, dad, everyone is going to change your life. And, or even my own partner, it's like, for years and years he wasn't really into these things, and now he like loves breath work, he loves meditating. And it wasn't because I was forcing him, even though I certainly tried in the beginning. It's about them coming to it at their own time and by embodying and being the example. And I've been talking to, my teacher a lot about this idea of like, if you want to be a leader, you go first. You walk
Mm,
this path alone and you show up every single day, even if no one else is there with you. You do it and you show up and you go first. And,
mm.
because there are days where I feel resistant, and I'm sure you do too, where you're like, I don't want to. I don't want to be the change. I don't want to be the light today. I don't want to,
Yeah.
but then we have this a beautiful accountability to who is watching and who is listening, and that for me, anyways, gives me the accountability to show up to my practice, to show up to my prayers, to show up to my dreams, is because I want to be who I say I am, and
Mm,
the work that you saw firsthand on the retreat and what I'm offering. I can't go home and then be a jerk to myself and not love myself. And it's the same thing with your music and who you are. You can't say all these things and then not walk them.
yeah. I that reminds me of the last day of the retreat when you sat us all down and had like a very like
I yelled at everyone.
moment. And you're just like, you cannot go back to your old habits. You learn this that the world needs you to step into this now. And it's been so powerful. And I've been living that since being back. And I think that was the other key I've been looking for of like, don't, once you learn and you know, you just embody it. Like, you don't have to wait for someone's permission. You don't have to wait to read that next book or take that next course. You can just be it now. It takes so much of your power back. And I think that's a really important concept.
Yeah, I am this person now.
Now,
Yeah,
yeah.
now deciding and not waiting around for the world to choose you or someone to choose you. That was a huge shift for me in my 20s where I was sort of waiting around for it, whatever it was,
Mm,
until I said, oh, I could choose me. And what does that
mm,
actually feel like? I could choose me.
mm,
I get to decide and define my value and worth in this world. Um, that changed actually everything for me. And then I
mm,
started attracting, yeah, different types of friendships, different types of partnerships. I met my husband. I did a lot of things in those sort of years where I was really working on the I'm my own choice and I need to show up for
mm.
me. And that's a daily process. That's not just one time. That's every day. I got
For
to choose me.
real. That's every day, every single day.
Yeah.
So true.
Um, so I know we're just sort of wrapping up here, but I'm curious if there's something, we're ending 2023 and stepping into a new year. What was the greatest learning for you in 2023?
Learning that I am not my thoughts. I am the happiness beneath my thoughts, the happiness that floats above my thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts.
Mm. Yeah, there's this Pema Chodron quote that says, "You are the sky; everything else is just the weather." And that's it, right? Is that you're just the blue sky, and the clouds come in, everything rolls in and rolls out, and we really the essence of who we are um, is joy. It is our birthright. Yeah. And then all the stuff kind of rolls in and rolls out. But if we can remember the temporariness of all of these things, the impermanence of all of these things, this is where we can find joy now in the moment. And it's so beautiful. And I love your understanding of it is very advanced actually. So it's so beautiful when I was following up a few weeks ago about your feet and you sent me sort of all these paragraphs about observing your mind. I was like, damn, this is like high level spirituality teachings.
Thank you.
And to get that now and to get that at your age with the platform that you have, I just, you're unstoppable, my dear. You really are.
I received that. I received that. Yes,
Mm.
my goal is to be the happiest, healthiest artist. I want people to see what spirit embodied looks like. Like, that's what I want my example to be, and for my career and my growth to be from spirit and not from me pretending to be anyone else or doing anything else. Just, this is the power of spirit, self belief, and manifestation. And ta-da!
And so it is. And so it
And so it
is. Ah, so beautiful. That's the perfect ending. And
is.
for anyone that wants to find your music or find you, where can we find you?
You can find me on socials at Who is Umi. You can find me on YouTube with Umi, UMI, and you can find me on all your streaming platforms, Umi, and stream my new EP, Talking to the Wind. It's out January 19th. And if you're finding me before January 19th, you can find all my other music too, and my videos. Um, Oh, and I make meditations. So if you ever want to check out my meditations, also on my YouTube page. So everything's easy to find. Umi.
Beautiful. You are such a gift to the world. You're such a gift to me. I so deeply value our connection. And I just know that our two souls were just meant to be in this lifetime. And I just, yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you offer. the world. Thank you for everything you offer yourself, because that's so, so important. And thank you for the gifts that you've brought to my life.
I'm gonna cry. Thank you, Allie. I feel like I get to teach everything you've taught me to more
Mm.
people. So we're just doing it together. We're spreading love
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bye, Umi.